Am I the a-hole for telling my husband he ruined the birth of our daughter? Hi everyone! I've been struggling with this for a while now, and it's been weighing heavily on me. Our daughter is now 8 weeks old, but this argument has been brewing for nearly my entire pregnancy. To be honest, we've both been holding grudges, and neither of us thinks we're wrong. My husband has no idea I'm posting this, so I'm going to try and keep it as anonymous as possible. It all started early in my pregnancy. As soon as I found out I was expecting, my husband became incredibly adamant about me having a home birth. I didn't fully understand why he was so insistent. We hadn't talked about home births before, and as far as I knew, he had no medical or personal experience with it. At first, I didn't think much of it. I was only 6 weeks pregnant, and the idea of giving birth seemed so distant at that point. I told him I'd think about it, mostly to keep the peace. But I always had it in my mind that I wanted to give birth in a hospital, where I'd feel safe and supported. As my pregnancy progressed, so did his insistence on a home birth. At every doctor's appointment, he'd bring it up, often speaking over me when the doctor asked about my birth plan. It was embarrassing. I'd be sitting there trying to express my concerns, and he would just bulldoze over me, talking about how natural birth is and how it was the best way for both the baby and me. It became a point of tension between us. We had arguments, but I thought eventually he would come. Around and respect my wishes, around 30 weeks, his mother got involved. She sat me down one day and told me why they didn't want me to go to a hospital for the birth. It was like she and my husband had some plan that I wasn't a part of. She listed off all these reasons. Some of them were typical home birth talking points, but others were just bizarre. She made it sound like hospitals were evil places where doctors only cared about money and would force me into unnecessary interventions. I told her that my main concern was the safety of our baby and myself, but just like my husband, she brushed me off. It was frustrating and isolating. I didn't feel heard or respected. By 36 weeks, I finally put my foot down. I told my husband I was going to the hospital when it was time, with or without him. I thought that would be the end of it, but he acted like he didn't even hear me. He ignored my decision completely. He even went as far as meeting with a doula behind my back and pushing for a home birth like it was a done deal. I didn't feel supported at all. The doula was also very pushy, constantly telling me that birth was a natural process and that I needed to trust my body. But it wasn't about trust, it was about safety and feeling in control of my own body and experience. By this point, I was 36 weeks pregnant and feeling completely overwhelmed. Then the moment came. At 39 weeks, I went into labor, and that's when everything fell apart. I literally begged my husband to take me to the hospital where my doctor was waiting. He refused. He spoke to me in this condescending tone, like I didn't know what was best for myself or our baby. He called the doula instead of helping me get to the hospital. I was furious but too exhausted and in too much pain to fight back. I labored at home for 3 days. 3 days. The last 22 hours were in active labor, and I was in agony. I cried the entire time because something just didn't feel right. I was scared. I kept telling them that something was wrong, but they didn't listen. The doula assured me everything was fine, but I knew it wasn't. Worse, they often left me alone. I was in the worst pain of my life, terrified, and left to fend for myself. The doula told me that if active pushing lasted over 24 hours, I'd have to go to the hospital anyway, and I remember thinking I didn't know what was worse. Staying in labor for another 2 hours or giving birth right there at home where I didn't feel safe. When our daughter was finally born, I didn't even feel joy or relief. I didn't want to hold her right away. I just cried because it was over. I was so emotionally and physically drained that I couldn't even process the moment. After the birth, I went to my follow-up appointment with my doctor, and she was shocked that I had delivered at home. She was concerned about the whole situation, which made me even more upset. I kept thinking about how different things could have been if I had been listened to. I could have had a safe, calm birth experience in the hospital, but instead, I was traumatized. I told my husband that he ruined the birth of our daughter for me. I told him that I never want to go through that again, and I meant it. I hear other mothers talk about how they forget the pain the second they hold their baby, but I didn't. I still remember every agonizing moment, and I can't just get over it like he expects me to. His response, he rolls his eyes and tells me I'm not being strong like other mothers. He keeps saying that women are built for this and that I need to move on. I told him that if we ever have another child, which he wants, that I will never agree to a home birth again. His response, we'll see. I'm at my wit's end. Everyone around me, including his family, acts like this is normal, that I'm overreacting, but I can't shake the feeling that I was betrayed during one of the most vulnerable times of my life. I feel like I'm alone in this, and I'm starting to doubt myself. So, am I the a-hole for telling him that he ruined the birth of our daughter?